Meanwhile, the border crisis is getting deeper and deeper, and so is America, frankly. And the big war with China. The majority of the GOP has been sounding the alarm on the threat posed by communist China. Joining me now, Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. Congressman, always a pleasure to talk with you here on the Chris Salcedo Show. Now, China is hell-bent on supplanting the United States as the world's superpower. The only one who doesn't know or appear to care is the American left and the American media. Can we afford to ignore this threat, in your view?
Well, we do at our own peril. And Chris, as always, thanks for having me on. And let me just say, your opening monologue, it was spot on. They should play that for people coming, for congressmen and congresswomen coming in, so they understand this threat. That was so succinct and spot on. But yes, China is an incredible threat to the United States. And they openly say that they want to supplant us as a world superpower. And a lot of people on the left don't understand what that really means, because they either have a lot in common with the Chinese Communist Party or they're too naive to understand it. But it means that free trade is gone. It means that the promotion of democracy is gone. International norms, laws, and customs, gone. It is a world that is subservient not just to China, but the Chinese Communist Party. And the sooner that we recognize that threat and that long-term goal of the Chinese Communist Party, the longer it takes us, the weaker we are going to be to push back and fight against it.
Now, I could say that Mr. Biden has forgotten the dangers that China poses, but he actually has never had this view that China is a threat. Last week, his White House was ebullient over Major League Baseball launching an economic attack on Americans in Georgia. At the same time, Biden hastily assured his allies in China that America would not boycott China's Olympics. Question: why would socialist Democrats be so eager to make sure Beijing gets millions of American and Western dollars, and equally eager to legitimize such a brutal and inhuman regime?
Lots of reasons. Number one, they have more in common with the Chinese Communist Party than they do with everyday Americans. Number two, they will never pass up an opportunity to virtue signal. And they'll do it at the expense of true victims, like the members of the Uyghur minority group who are literally in concentration camps in Western China. But they can't run from this hypocrisy much longer. Remember, I was calling for, and my colleague, Representative Waltz, was calling for, and we are still calling for a boycott, or at least moving the Chinese Olympics to a pro-democratic state. We were being told that that is inappropriate and we shouldn't do that. Then a few weeks later, the MLB pulls out of Georgia over having the audacity to want to verify votes in free elections. A lot of these executives, a lot of these companies do business in China where they're not even allowed to have elections, let alone verified elections. It shows you that the Democrats are beholden to the Chinese interests. It shows that corporate America has sold out American values to buddy up and get access to the Chinese market. And it shows you that ideology means nothing now. Our values mean nothing. It's all about pushing the ideology of communist China. And as far as big tech goes, big tech in a lot of ways is working hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party, from promoting Chinese Communist Party ideology to having Chinese censors, people from the Chinese Communist Party embedded in big tech to help with their censorship, and also mirroring the social credit score that's used so effectively in China, where if you're not deemed a good citizen, you can't buy a plane ticket. Your kid can't get into the school he or she wants to. Every decision you make is based on that social credit score. It's not just coming to the United States. Big tech, the big Democrat Socialist Party, academia, they've brought a de facto social credit score here. If you don't believe me, we can go through examples. But again, at the end of the day, the Democrats, the socialists, the corporate leaders have more in common with the Chinese Communist Party than they do with everyday Americans. That's really what's driving this.
Unbelievable. And it's a murderous regime. It's a human rights abuser. I remember the good old days when we Americans would unite and oppose those type of totalitarians, but not anymore. Only half of America actually cares to stand up to those butchers. Let me pivot, if we can, to a different subject matter. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki accidentally admitting to the American people something we've already known. Mexico and Guatemala, they are now increasing security to make crossing our southern border a little more difficult. Listen to this.
There have been a series of bilateral discussions between our leadership and the regional governments of Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala. Through those discussions, there was a commitment, as you mentioned, to increase border security. I think the objective is to make it more difficult to make the journey and make crossing the borders more difficult.
So wait a minute. We've got to consult these countries to secure our border, Congressman. And by the way, why are we consulting other countries if there's no crisis at our southern border?
Exactly. It's amazing to watch them deny the crisis, yet take action to alleviate the stress at our southern border at the same time. Only with the legacy media and the mainstream media are the Democrat socialists allowed to get away with this nonsense. But let's not kid ourselves. The real crisis at the southern border was caused by one person only, Joe Biden. It was Joe Biden's idea to tear down sections of the border wall. It was his idea to end the asylum in place plan that worked so well under President Trump, and which President Trump, of course, started. It's also Joe Biden who resurrected the failed catch and release policy of the Obama-Biden administration. All of these things were atrocious ideas that are actually leading to more illegal immigration. Additionally, if you add to it the rhetoric, the reckless rhetoric from the left on immigration, it's encouraging people to take this dangerous trek to our southern border. It's amazing. And think about this, too. Kamala Harris was put in charge of this crisis at the southern border. She has yet to hold one press conference on the southern border. Additionally, when she was asked before being given the role whether or not she had visited the southern border, she laughed. She didn't even take the question seriously. To the Democrats and to the socialists, this is an absolute joke at the southern border. And it's amazing now they recognize it's a crisis and they're reaching out to other countries to help solve it. Just if they want to solve it, just go back to what President Trump and his administration did. They had this under control.
Yeah, you said it best. It's a big joke. It's a big joke, and that's why you said Kamala Harris is in charge. That's the biggest laugh riot around. Congressman, appreciate the time as always here on the Chris Salcedo Show. We'll talk again.